Mr Acting Deputy President, I rise to speak on the Farm Household Support Amendment Bill 2019. 5 years ago, the Liberal National Coalition Government introduced the Farm Household Allowance Program as part of a suite of measures to assist our farmers who are doing it tough. During this time, we've made a number of changes to ensure the program meets the needs of Australian farming families, whether that be putting food on the table, paying household bills or buying school supplies. Today we are seeking to make further changes to improve the program to ensure it is fit for purpose. Farmers are unlike any other recipients of government support. They have a full-time business to run, livestock to care for, crops to market and properties to maintain. And I know this personally as someone whose parents, grandparents and great-grandparents were farmers. Indeed, in my office, which is just over the other side of the wall here, I have an old milk can from my grandparents' dairy farm. On the wall are cane knives that were used by our family. I do this to make sure I never forget how tough it is being a farmer. I also know this as a senator who spends his life on the road travelling around regional, rural and remote Queensland. Indeed, just this last weekend, on Friday, I went up to the Tully Show, one of the finest agricultural shows in Queensland, where the Liberal National Party had a stall there and was able to meet many people there and look at the bananas and look at the sugarcane that was being judged. I'd like to acknowledge all those who were winners in those various contests and thank Andrew Cripps and his parents for all their work and his family they do for the community up there. I should acknowledge that Paul Scar also went to the show on Friday afternoon. And on Saturday I was out in Hughenden, and I think senators will be interested to know that Hughenden is the capital of the Flinders Shire Council. The mayor there is Jane McNamara, and I was there representing the government, observing the signing of an agreement between the Shire Council and a company called C&VM Investments. And they were signing a deed of agreement to build a meat processing facility in a feedlot in Hughenden. This is something a lot of people have done a lot of work on over many years. And why they're doing that is because the solution to what is happening in rural, remote and regional Australia is what is in this bill here today, but also it is what councils and what businesses are doing out in rural, regional and remote Queensland and Australia. Because when our farmers are doing well, our regional economies are doing well. And when our farmers are doing it tough, not only do our regional economies do it tough, but the cities do it tough. And so we must demonstrate our willingness to act to make sure they get the hand up that they need. And before I get into the substance of the bill that's before us here today, I want to look in terms of what else the government is doing to support regional Australia. Because we've got a vision for regional Australia. We want people to move and live in regional Australia. We want regional Australia to grow. And I say that as someone who lives in regional Australia. I live on the Darling Downs. I live on a patch of dirt just outside of Warwick, and Senator Mackenzie, your cabinet colleague, Minister Littleproud, lives on the other side of Warwick. My office is in another region of Queensland on the Sunshine Coast. So we understand regional Australia because we come from it, and we want to grow it. We want to back our regional economies. We want to create new and better paying jobs and give the families the opportunity to keep on living in regional Australia and stop that drain that goes to the cities. Just a few weeks ago at the Bush Summit in Dubbo, the Prime Minister announced that the Minister for Agriculture will lead a national plan to enable agriculture, fisheries and forestry to become a $100 billion industry by 2030. And that's pretty exciting, very exciting actually. The Prime Minister also announced the government will establish a House Select Committee that will look at the future of rural and regional Australia, to be chaired by the member for Barker, Mr Tony Passon MP. It shows that not only are we delivering, but we want to think about where we're taking regional and rural Australia. So that is a very important thing the government is doing. And the committee's work will pull together positive stories from across regional Australia, and its work will be vital in the lead-up to a formal statement from the Deputy Prime Minister who will make to the House of Representatives later this year. The government will announce further details on this committee as the time moves on. We will continue to invest in our regions through major programs like the $841 million Building Better Regions Fund and through the launch of regional deals which bring together the 3 tiers of government to build a better future for our regions. I just want to talk about the BBRF. The BBRF is one of the best programs that any government, in my view, has ever done in Australia's history. It is brilliant at enabling small communities to get funds to invest sometimes in big projects up to $10 million or very small projects. The Wandai Art Gallery. Senator McKenzie, I know you've been to Wandai because you popped into a second-hand store there, and I'd been there 2 days beforehand. And the reason we're going to go to Wandai is because the art gallery in Wandai is one of the best regional art galleries in the country. It got a BBRF fund of about $50,000, which the volunteers were able to use to improve the kitchen facilities for that art gallery. And their annual art show is coming up on the 4th of October for those who are interested. But also you go back to Hewenden. The government was able to put about $5 million into a recreational lake. And while I was in Hewenden on Saturday, I was able to inspect that lake and see the work that's come along there. The federal government put money in through BBRF, the state government put some money in, the council put some money in. It's going to be a brilliant facility for a small country town that has been doing it tough. So the grain nomads can go there, spend their money so the kids in town have somewhere to swim. Now, as announced in the 2019-20 budget, the government is investing in regional deals, providing $172 million as part of the Hinkler regional deal. Now, for those who know that Keith Pitt, he never takes no for an answer, and so he's delivered for his communities in Hinkler and the Greater Wide Bay. And we've got $45 million with the Barkly regional deal up in the Territory, and $3.2 million to the Albury-Wodonga regional deal. This will help respond to local priorities and drive productivity in each of those regions. But something else the government is doing, and it's close to my heart, is the Rural Financial Counselling Service. Because after my parents had to sell the family farm, Dad became one of the first rural financial counsellors in the country. So it's something that I've sort of lived through and know about, and is a brilliant thing that the governments have been doing at a federal and state level in terms of trying to help farmers stay on the land to make sure that they can run their farms as businesses. Now, this assistance provided through the FHA is complemented by the critical Rural Financial Counselling Service. The Coalition Government has increased its investment in the service to more than $77 million, which is just a brilliant investment. So because our farmers are doing it tough, between the 1st of July 2018 and the 30th of June 2019, there were over 6,600 active clients, which is an increase of more than 1,700 clients from the previous year. And that is why last year the Australian government increased the funding by $5 million from $16.7 million to $21.7 million. Rural financial counsellors provide premium, tailored and valuable support to farmers in helping them to identify financial and business options, assisting with negotiations, providing referrals and helpful information on available support. The support is tailored to each client's need and is entirely confidential. Rural financial counsellors are highly mobile and can visit on farm and have the meeting in their office or other mutually convenient locations. And actually what is not said often about the financial counselling service is often it's the opportunity for the farmers, Mr and Mrs Farmer, to have that conversation with someone. So it's not just the bloke or his wife, it is both the farmers, but having that conversation with someone about how the farmer's going financially. But there's always this emotional support that goes there to sit around that table and have a conversation about sometimes just about life. And especially if you're out working on a farm and you're out in the tractor or whatever like that, you don't get to speak to humans too often. And for those who are listening on their tractors at the moment, Senator McKenzie and those who and they do listen, senators who may have a giggle at that, they do listen to us. So I'll probably get critiqued on the number of ums I've said in this speech. Farmers are some of the most informed contributors to public life in Australia because they spend so much time listening to Senate debates. Yes, they should do that. Now, in terms of how we're helping those in rural and regional communities is also drought support. And this has been touched upon by Senator McDonald, and I acknowledge the comments of Senator Hanson before. Helping our farming families and their communities through the drought is a key priority for the Australian government. Something that some people may not be aware of is that there are children in Queensland. I look at the students up in the gallery. There are children in Queensland who are yet to experience rain. They are yet to experience precipitation falling on their heads. So long has been the drought in their home communities. And that is a tragedy for them as young Australians, and it's a tragedy for their communities. So we know they're doing it tough, and the government's been listening. We always know we can do more, but I think we're doing a good lot at the moment. So as part of the government's ongoing immediate and long-term drought response, the government is providing more than $7 billion in assistance and concessional loans to support those affected by drought. Our support and assistance measures cover a range of areas, including financial assistance, investment in infrastructure, rural and regional mental health, combating weeds and pests, making information easier to access, and improving existing services such as a farm household allowance, which is what this bill is about today, and the rural financial counselling service. And in terms of pests, one of the things that we're particularly good at doing in Queensland is in terms of the wild dog fences, in terms of ensuring that farms can be fenced off from the wild dogs. And what we're seeing in parts of especially southwest Queensland is that sheep are returning to areas where they were driven out from because of a combination of the drought, but more worryingly because of what wild dogs were doing. And for those who have been behind this program in terms of the wild dog fencing, the exclusion fencing, it is a brilliant program of the government trying to stop this particular, I won't say invasive species. Everybody loves dogs, but these dogs need to be shot on sight or fenced out from people's properties. We're providing support to farmers to be based on preparedness, risk management and support in times of hardship, including drought, and is not dependent on where a farmer lives or dependent on them being in a particular industry. One of the key investments is through the establishment of the Future Drought Fund, which will provide a secure and sustainable source of funding to strengthen drought resilience. This is making sure that when in the times when it is good, that people can make sure they've had themselves prepared for when it actually goes bad. So now is the time to fix up the waterways, to fix up the dams, to fix up that infrastructure that is on people's farms. Following the passage of the Future Drought Fund Bill 2019, $100 million will be invested annually in projects that help Australian farmers and communities to be more prepared for and resilient to the effects of drought. Now, there are other measures that can assist farmers to stay on the land. Through the Regional Investment Corporation, Australian farmers can now access up to $2 million in low-interest loans, double the previous limit of $1 million. The government has also doubled the total funding available for low-interest loans in any given year to $500 million. These loans will help farmers in hardship, including those affected by the current drought. The first 5 years of these loans will remain interest-only. Eligible farmers with existing government loans will be able to refinance their loan with the Regional Investment Corporation to access the interest-only period. Recently, the government announced additional support for farmers recovering from drought through concessional replanting and restocking loans of up to $200,000, which will be made available through the Regional Investment Corporation. Now, I'll return, Mr Acting Deputy President, in the time that is left to the Farm Household Alliance, and that's why the Farm Household Alliance program has a more generous assets test and other special dispensations. The Farm Household Allowance program includes income support for up to 4 cumulative years, up to $1,500 to complete a farm financial assessment of the farm enterprise by a financial professional, up to $4,000 for each person in activity supplements, and up to 17 one-on-one case management meetings, and a healthcare card and a pharmaceutical allowance, rent assistance, telephone allowance and remote area allowance where it is deemed to be applicable. It is uncapped and a demand-driven program, ensuring no one who is eligible misses out. Since its commencement, the program has provided support for more than 12,000 Australians and paid over more than $340 million. The Farm Household Allowance program is not just a drought measure. It helps all farmers facing financial hardship. But we must ensure that it remains fit for purpose, which is why we are seeking to make a number of improvements to the program. They include extending the program from 3 to 4 cumulative years, implementing the supplementary lump sum payments in the 2018-19 financial year, removing the profit from the forced disposal of livestock from the program income test if it was put in a farm management deposit, and simplifying the application form. Last year, the government temporarily increased the net farm assets test eligibility threshold from $2.6 million to $5 million. This move recognised that while farmers may have substantial assets, they may have no income to meet daily expenses. And this is something, when you travel around Queensland, you hear quite often that farmers have been destocking their properties. They've got no money coming in. They're pulling kids out of school. They're selling off other assets. And what that means is when it rains, when the good times come again, as they always do, that the farmers are unable to restock because they cannot afford to restock, and they're unable to grow their crops because they do not have the money in the bank to make sure that the business can grow. This move recognises that while farmers may have substantial assets, as I've said earlier, that this helps them grow their businesses, and that's very important. As a result of this increase, nearly 280 new recipients have come onto the program. And during the election campaign, the Liberal National Coalition government promised to make this change permanent. This is one of the many promises that we made during the election campaign, and one of the many promises that we're going to deliver. It formed one of the key components of our election manifesto, supporting farmers in drought. This bill delivers on that election commitment by amending the Farm Household Support Act 2014 to set the net farm assets threshold at $5 million. This change will allow up to 8,000 more people to access the program above the previous threshold. It means these farmers will not have to sell their assets and risk taking away some or all of the future income-producing capacity of their farm business. It also recognises that farm assets can be difficult to sell quickly, and during tough times are often sold for less than they're worth. And we know that in Queensland. You only have to look sometime at the pages of Country Life in terms of the properties that have appeared a year ago and then come back 3 months later or 6 months later, that there is no interest in buying these properties because the properties are drought impacted, and we don't want these farmers selling these properties at such a loss that will impact upon their ability to retire debt or to invest in other businesses. This bill will also amend the treatment of income from business such that allowable deductions can be claimed against related income. That is, allowable deductions associated with on-farm business income will be able to be deducted from that income, and off-farm deductions will be associated with off-farm income. This clarification is consistent with the policy intent and will not have any financial consequences for recipients. The Liberal National Government is providing immediate relief efforts, whether it is through the Farm Household Allowance or more direct grants that have been made to councils around the country to support our farmers. I don't want to keep going back to the Flinders Shire Council, but in a trip that I went to the northwest about 6 weeks ago, that the $1 million that had been provided to those drought-impacted councils has been gratefully received by those councils. And what is interesting, whether it is Longreach or Blackall, Tambo or Winton or Flinders or McKinlay or Richmond, they're all spending that $1 million, but they're all spending it in different ways. And that's the best thing. We don't need the federal government telling people how to spend money. Those on the ground know what they can do with it. So this Liberal National Government stands behind the farmers in need. We're prepared to provide a genuine long-term investment in drought resilience and drought-proofing Australia. And for that, Mr Acting Deputy President, I commend the bill to the Senate.